All right, guys, happy Friday. You made it to the end of another long week. So recently, my husband told me that 23andMe, the company, is going bankrupt. They are going out of business. And it's okay because not on this show. Not on this show, my friends. Business is booming, and Kamala's results, her 23andMe results, which we are conducting, they have come back. It is clear what she is and what she is not. And more than anything else, it's really made me realize that we should all aspire to be middle class like her. We're going to talk about that. Plus, there's already fraud in this election. Some major announcements coming out of Pennsylvania and Virginia. We're going to cover them both and tell you why it's important. That's what's coming up on Candace. All right, so today I would like to focus on what it means to come from a middle-class family, because I don't feel like that's just a phrase you can toss around. But it is something that Kamala has routinely hit upon as she's hit the road. Case in point, obviously, recently her appearance on The Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God. Here's what she said.
Look, I grew up in the middle class. My mother, worked hard, raised me and my sister, and by the time I was in high school, she was able to afford our first home.
There's a couple of things that you said.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a couple of things that you said that people would say were talking points, but it's really just your story, even though they are becoming your greatest hits. When you talk about the middle class and your godmother being a small business owner. Mm-hmm. But that's just your story.
It's my story. Mm-hmm. Look, I've been in this race 70 days. Some people are just getting to know me. Yep. Other people have known me.
Talking about your godmother being a small business owner as proof that you're middle class, your godmother, what does that have to do with anything? Of course, none of these people ever fact check her. None of these people are interested in reporting on all the things that we uncovered. They're just trying to keep their heads down and hoping that not enough people will watch this series to realize that virtually everything she says is a lie. And by the way, she also says this when she's stumping on speeches. Take a listen.
I come from the middle class, and I will never forget where I come from.
She definitively forgot where she came from, but it's okay because I am here to remind her. I'm very much here to remind her that she has somehow been memory wiped. And even her father, he writes this glorious piece and says, ancestry unknown to me. For whatever reason, they have descended within a fog of amnesia. All right, so we know already that Kamala is a dyed-in-the-wool communist. That is just an absolute fact, but I don't really think Americans quite appreciate what communism means yet because it hasn't exactly arrived on our shores fully. Americans don't quite compute why it is that the Cubans freak out, why the Cubans are voting Republican. They know exactly what communism is. They know what happened to their families. It's in their recent memories. They don't, the Americans, us Americans, don't really compute the suffering and the starvation and the death that always follows a communist regime. And they don't even really, I think if you polled the average American or the average American student, don't even really know who the forefathers of communism were. So I'd already explained this in a former episode, but essentially those that were involved in the slave trade and were reluctant to let it go, when they said, okay, never mind, no more, it's been abolished, it would make sense that they then became communists, right? Okay, well, if you're interested in controlling people and you want to really own people, and you now recognize that you can't physically enslave those people to do your bidding, well, then you realize that you have to then control the government and enslave them in almost a sneakier way. So in a slave master environment, you are the master, you force the slaves that you own to work, and then you reap all the benefits, right? The slaves are poor, maybe they're living in tents, whatever it is, and you are everything that they're picking cotton, you're taking the cotton, you're selling it, and you're making tons of money. You've got this amazing plantation. In a communist government, you get dumb people to vote you in. Like, you're still the masters, but you're like, okay, we've got to get into the government. Dumb people are going to vote us in. And how we're going to get them to do that is just blaming what are really just like causal economic disparities. Like, it would make sense that a person that doesn't go to work, doesn't want to work, and is lazy is making less money than somebody who works 50 hours a week. But they just go, oh, look, there's a disparity that exists. There's an economic disparity that exists. And they then just blame some cosmic injustice. Oh, it's because she's a woman, or it's because, it's because it's a white person, or it's because you're Hispanic. And so that's how these to-be masters get them get these people to vote them into power. Like the government is going to solve this, when in reality, the government is just the new master, and the government is going to reap all of the benefits when you vote them in. And they're going to do that through more and more taxation and more regulation. So you're going to go to work just like the slaves did, and then they're going to be like, sorry, but there's all of these disparities that we, the government, have to fix. And how we're going to do that is we're going to just like take 90% of your check. We're gonna share everything. We're taking it because we're gonna divide it. You're not gonna see how we're gonna do that, and it doesn't really matter if this person works this many hours or this person. Everyone's just gonna have the same results, which is the government taking everything. We're going to own and operate everything. And we've seen what has happened, the last 100 years. Over 100 million people have died because of communism. But again, Americans are not yet awake to that sort of devastation. Anyways, I'm bringing that up because when Donald Harris wrote in his piece about his grandma, allegedly Miss Chrissy Brown, her adoration for Alexander Bustamante and his politics, I knew something was very wrong there. When I began to look into Kamala's mother, who we're going to discuss on Monday with a journalist who knows a lot about that family, and realized that she too came from a wealthy family of communists, I realized that something was very, very wrong there, extraordinarily wrong there. So Kamala's family, as we have determined, on her father's side, so we know she's 50% Indian, right? We got that on the genealogy chart. Okay, she's 50% Indian. But on her father's side, we know that it's comprised of Harrises and Browns, and that they were the slavers in St. Anne. The Harris family, by the way, we have learned was formerly the Solomon family, bore the Solomon surname when they were in England before they settled in Jamaica. It was, as we spoke about in the last couple of episodes, a Sephardic Jewish family that settled, enslaved, and then when there was no more slavery, they ran the sugar plantations. Slavery got abolished, and they still were the masters of plantations, but with different political concerns, because now all of a sudden policy matters, okay? It matters a lot if you're going to want to re-enslave these people. So I got quite obsessed in the last 48 hours with trying to locate and learn more about this Christiana Brown. First and foremost, because I just don't feel like this is her. And despite everything that Donald tells us about her and her politics and how involved she was and how she was running these dry goods stores in his piece, I can only locate a Christiana Brown who was a laundress at some point, like a person who was washing clothes. That was her responsibility. And she appeared in a court hearing that had to deal with election fraud. So that was a major red flag for me. So I start crawling through more and more articles, still can't find anything on her. So I decided to instead renew my focus on her alleged husband, okay, Joseph Alexander Brown. He looks like a fine gentleman, well dressed up in that photo, okay? And I just wanted to learn as much as I could about this individual, because I realized that it would paint a broader picture for me about this family, which I am now recognizing was extraordinarily powerful, perhaps all throughout time, by the way. Like, I think these families kind of reappear in new countries, know how to implement systems, get with the times, they're way advanced. They know how to put themselves on the right boards of governance and make sure that they are informing policy. So I stumbled upon a hit. And by the way, we can get that chart up just so we can show who Joseph Alexander is, so that you guys are following this. So you have Oscar Joseph, right? So you have Donald Harris there at the bottom. That's Kamala's dad. Then you have Oscar Joseph, and we are told that Oscar Joseph's parents are Joseph Alexander, the Syrian Jew landowner. We know these as a fact, and that he allegedly married Miss Chrissy Brown. So she should be Chrissy Brown Harris. I can't find anything on this woman, and I'm feeling that might not be a picture of her. I don't know if these two look like they're exactly a match to me, but perhaps they are. Anyways, so I'm looking for Joseph Alexander Harris, and I do get a hit about a Joseph Harris, and it was a wedding piece. And I'm going to show you that, pertaining to a woman named Adele Harris. And this is in the Kingston Gleaner, and it informs us that at the Sacred Heart Trinidad, Port of Spain, on the 20th of September, and by the way, this is in 1906, by the Reverend Father Casey George Gonsalves of the West Indian Telegraph Company, got married to Adele Matilda the granddaughter of the late Joseph Harris of Brownstown, St. Anne. Okay. So for clarity, Adele would have been the cousin to the patriarch Joseph Alexander. Again, showing you this on the chart because you're seeing, I'm going to tell you why this woman became of interest to me. I don't have a picture of her, and just showing you like that just would have been the cousin of Joseph Alexander. So this became of interest to me because of something else that I found out about her and her family. So, and I'm going to go back and tell you, my husband always leaves like books on the bedside that he wants me to read. And a while ago, like kind of actually when we first got married, my husband made me read this book, which was entitled The World for Sale. It was sort of like an early baptism for me into the world of commodities. It was a very interesting read, really just to understand that our viewpoints are so molecular when we are reading the news and trying to digest world events. Really, everything revolves around commodities. Like what is for sale in the world? Okay. Is it human? Is it human cattle? Okay. Then everything that's happening, you can war, politics, policy is all going to be based on that. And they kind of shut the rest of the world out. Like, so you don't realize that they're really going to war because they want oil, right? They're telling you it's really because there's a terrorist here or there's a terrorist there. You don't realize people are really going to war because they found gold, but you're hearing like it's, I don't know, maybe they wanted to expand into a different territory. Everything you learn in school is just a nice little fairy tale, that's really just designed to make you feel and think that there was like this human emotion behind all of these wars that are happening and things that are happening, when reality, it just comes down to commodities and what is for sale and who can make money and how. So you have to imagine during this period in Kamala's life, right? Her family was at the top, as far as we can go back, they were at the tippity top of the agricultural revolution, followed by the first industrial revolution. Like they owned slaves, right? So they were extraordinarily wealthy, like I said, and you're not just going to let that wealth go. You're not going to be like, okay, well, now they abolished slavery, so I'm good with that. So we know what followed the first industrial revolution was the second industrial revolution. So if you were a slave owner and you are looking to make sure that you maintain your wealth and your influence, what is the next industry that you're going to get into during this timeline? The answer to that is oil. Oil kind of became the next big thing to get into. And so I couldn't find anything about Adele, but then I did learn that this family, for whatever reason, decided to become Catholic. Maybe they were compelled by faith, but we had discussed that even on the Bravo Harris side, that suddenly everyone kind of converted into various Christian denominations, this one being Catholic, and they got into the oil industry. And I found this because Adele had a child. She had two children, and one of them had a very thorough obituary written about him on an ancestry site, and that person was George. Again, I can show you this chart. Here he is. This is in memoriam. It says Vin. He went by Vin, but his name was George Vincent Gonsalves. Okay, so despite the fact that he was an English Jew, they converted to Catholicism, and now they've kind of got this Spanish last name. Okay, look at this obituary. And I'm going to tell you why this matters to me. This is our dad, Vin Gonsalves, was born on the 13th of July, 1914 in the Great House at Marble Hill near St. John's, Antigua. He was the third child and the second son of planter George Reginald Reggie Gonsalves and Adele Matilda Harris, the first to be born in Antigua. His elder siblings were both born in Jamaica, as was his mother. So every side of the family, they were involved in commodities. Dad attended Antigua Grammar School until he was 10, when dark clouds changed the family life drastically. Our grandfather sold one commodity, cane sugar, as we know. They were all running sugar plantations in Kamala's family. And he dealt with Red Path Sugar Company in Montreal. By the way, I think that's going to be a clue. I tend on exploring that over the weekend. He had a sister, Sarah Mildred, in Montreal. Her husband, Reggie's brother-in-law, Antonio Rodriguez, appears to have handled some of his business there. In the early 1920s, cane sugar became a depressed commodity. Beet sugar was produced cheaper than cane sugar could be. Cane sugar production was very labor intensive. The two family estates ran up huge debts. Then disaster happened. Reggie died. Our grandmother had no business experience, and with the help of her brother-in-law, had to liquidate the estates for little or nothing in return. Adele decided to move to Trinidad with her 5 children. Life was not easy for them. I don't believe that. But they were able to survive on little. The Depression started early for them. By 1931, the eldest of my father's siblings, Mary Louise, married a wealthy Venezuelan and went to live in Caracas. Okay, that is of tremendous interest to me. So instantly I said, okay, oil. That's very interesting. And I can't find this Mary Louise. I did find her birth certificate. She was actually born Maria Louise. Here it is right here. She was born, Marie Louise, and the last name is Gonsalves. She was born in Jamaica. All of that checks out. And then she virtually disappears. And were it not for this obituary, you would not be able to attach her to her brother or her parents because they have wiped any trace of her being attached to her parents on all of the ancestral sites. Like when you look him up, it doesn't say that he has a sister anywhere. But fortunately, we found this obituary, which was really done by the other side of his family. Anyways, the second portion is interesting too. So the sister is married into oil in Venezuela. And let's see what he did. Vin worked with Esso, an American oil company, in the accounting department and rose to the position of comptroller of accounts for the Caribbean area. His employment took him, Madge, and their 3 children to reside in Santo Domingo, Cuba, and Miami, where he finally retired to reside with his wife and family. This, apart from an initial spell of duty in Trinidad, Vin was highly regarded by his employers, who depended on his utter reliability, okay? All of his employees and business acquaintances and friends regarded him with respect and endearment. So he had employees, he's working for an American oil company. This guy's high up. Now this last piece gets super interesting. On his last foreign assignment as chief accountant for Esso in Havana, Cuba, Vin, Madge, and their 3 children were among the huge crowd to welcome and congratulate their new leader, the victorious Fidel Castro, when he arrived in the Havana waterfront on the famous boat Granma. Meticulous Vin, who kept detailed records of certain events, also had a comprehensive library of home movies, which included 16mm movie recording of that memorable occasion, which clearly shows George, Virginia, Douglas, and of course, Fidel Castro. I saw this movie at their Miami home. However, it was soon afterwards that Mr. Castro declared his real intentions of transforming Cuba into a communist state. Oh, I'm sure that they were so surprised by this. Panic set in. All who could left hurriedly for Miami. Vin sent his family, excepting George, to Miami to await his arrival. George offered to stay with his dad, which was very good. But this is called love. Noble Vincent gallantly decided to remain in Cuba to try to complete his job as the chief of Esso's office. You see, Castro had ordered his army to confiscate all American and foreign property, but why make the transition easy? After shipping the most vital information and files to Miami, it was decided to destroy all the remaining records. This is what Vin did. All the Cubans got was confettis and shreddies. Vin and George had to run for their lives and caught one of the last flights from Havana to Miami. This was the kind of stuff which Vin was made. So I call bullshit on those last 2 sentences. It's just a thing that everybody does. After they work with communist governments and they're corrupt, they then try to tell their families like stories, like, or they try to sell to the public, like, no, we worked with Fidel Castro and there's like, yeah, there's evidence that we stayed there and like he was starving his people and we were working on behalf of oil companies, but we were lucky. We made the very last flight out and all was good. Like it just happened to be like wherever we go, there's just communism in our family, but like it's not us. We fortunately escaped with our lives. No, I smell a family when I was reading this and realizing that now it looks like I'm going to be able to find Kamala's family with new Spanish names in Venezuela. Don't know if you've checked into Venezuela lately, but that also got robbed by communism due to people that, I would say probably had an interest in their oil. A lot of oil. It should really be the richest country in the world, but it's not because of communism. And so I just don't like that everywhere this Harris family goes, communism accidentally follows, okay? So I am looking for this Marie Louise who married a wealthy Venezuelan. I also strangely found the last name Castro as I was trying to search search through some records. And I think this is actually really important. And even though we're talking about who would be Kamala's cousins, I do also know, and this kind of made me think of the Rothschilds story of like the banking dynasty where he sent his sons to different corners of the world to start banks. And I'm thinking like this is sort of looking a lot like maybe family members got sent to different corners and got involved in politics, but we are dealing with a family that has always had a lot of power through every century, and it concerns me. Okay, when we start running up and dealing with oil and we start hitting up against Fidel Castro and we're talking about slavery and we're talking about a woman, maybe that's why she dropped the Latina accent. Maybe she's just like her auntie and she was just like, oh, sorry, I forgot I was not in Venezuela. But like we're dealing with a family that seems to morph according to whatever they feel they need to sell themselves as to gain power. I again want to state that Kamala and her family are incredibly dangerous people. This woman did not grow up middle class. She grew up, her mother's family was extraordinarily wealthy, and her father's family was extraordinarily wealthy. And it was confirmed to me by her own relatives that her father was handed a business in Jamaica. This is not your middle class person doesn't just like wake up and go, oh, okay, you descend from unbelievably wealthy slavers and plantation owners and sugar plantation supervisors and Standard Oil people. And like, yeah, sure, like there's some video footage of you and Fidel Castro, but you girl, you're in these streets. You are from these streets. I cannot impress enough that Kamala Harris is potentially an incredibly dangerous person. I know that we are already in the middle of people voting, but as much as you can work to get this information out there, I am telling you, there's something dark. And I think, and when I say something dark, I don't mean a black person. There's not a black person miles and miles within this family. I can't find one black person. But I'm thinking that the melanin, if my guess is correct, is going to come from an Indian that may be in her family, because we know that Indians were involved in the sugar trade. From every indication that I have, this family settled from Jamaica from the UK, and I think that they were involved in the East India Company. So like I said, a family that constantly morphs but maintains their power according to the times and with the power behind them of the mainstream media. So I want to take a pause on that, and we will, of course, have so many things to report on Monday, because we will be sitting down with that journalist who has a lot of things to share about Kamala's mother, who we haven't even started on Kamala's mother, because this was really just an investigation to get to the bottom of whether or not she was black. And I'm looking everywhere like that meme, and I can't even find one dot. And that's all I'm going to say about that topic. All right, guys, the media has dubbed this the abortion election. We have to stand up to this evil. When you join forces with Preborn, that's the largest pro-life organization in the nation, you are protecting the greatest victims in our society, babies that are in their mother's womb. Preborn's network of clinics are positioned in the highest abortion areas in the nation, and they have rescued over 300,000 babies. When a woman considering an abortion searches to end her baby's life, Preborn is there. Preborn gives these women in need a free ultrasound. The power of hearing a heartbeat on an ultrasound combined with God's love doubles a baby's chance at life. One ultrasound costs just $28, and up to 5 ultrasounds are $140. Any gift will help their cause, and all gifts are tax deductible. To donate securely, you just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. Again, that's pound 250 baby. Or you can head to preborn.com/Candace. Again, that is preborn.com/Candace. All right. Let's talk about election fraud. I can't believe this was like banned for a very long time, by the way, following January 6th. You weren't even allowed to talk about election fraud. You were having your videos pinged. And I never shut up about this ever. Like, all of these conservatives who then got sheepish about saying it and like, I'm not saying that there was wide-scale election fraud. Not me. Never once backpedaled at all. I am so sick of like media pressure followed by the cowardice of people to just say what we all know is true, which is that the 2020 election was rigged. You know, I've learned a lot about myself this year. I would really have learned a lot about myself in the last 35 years, but I definitively am somebody that is going to die on their feet. Like if people came around and they were like, you're going to die unless you say the thing, I have learned that I will just never say the thing. Like that's it. I'm out. Goodbye world. I just can't do it. It's like, bye, you're fired. Okay, I accept the consequences. Life's tough, Candace, get a helmet. I cannot just do the thing. Doesn't matter how much pressure, money, I just can't do the thing, okay? And America just had an election in 2020, which was stolen from Donald Trump. That's just the reality, okay? It's cool, write your headlines, and I'm fine with it. And so now that we've moved past the period of them gaslighting the public and making people fearful to lose their jobs if they said what was obviously true, now we are moving into this election, and already there is fraud. And so one of the media tricks is that they say, well, there wasn't widespread voter fraud. Yeah, because you don't need it to be widespread. You just need the fraud to take place in crucial swing states. You just need a couple of states to rig the entire election. And that's why they are so focused on Arizona and on Pennsylvania and places that can be purplish like Virginia. And lo and behold, it has now been confirmed that at least 2,500 suspected fraudulent voter registration forms have been dropped off already in Pennsylvania at the Lancaster County Board of Elections. The Lancaster County Board of Election official has come out and she has declared that is District Attorney Heather Adams. Here is what she had to say in a press briefing.
On Tuesday afternoon, I was contacted by Krista Miller, who is our Chief Clerk of Elections, regarding potentially fraudulent voter registration applications that had recently been received by her office. At that time, she informed me that the Elections Office received approximately 2,500 applications at or near the deadline for registering to vote. While preparing to process these applications, staff noticed that numerous applications appeared to have the same handwriting, were filled out on the same day with unknown signatures, and some were previously registered voters, excuse me, and the signatures on file did not match the signatures on the application. So before I begin to summarize our preliminary findings, I must remind everyone that this is an ongoing investigation, and for that reason, I will be limited in the details that I can provide. Lancaster County detectives began investigating the voter registration applications and immediately found applications that were indeed fraudulent. Indicators of fraud included inaccuracies with the addresses listed on the applications, false personal identification information, as well as false names. A number of the applications also contained names that did not match the provided Social Security information. In some cases, applications contained correct personal identification information, such as the correct address, correct phone number, date of birth, driver's license number, and Social Security number. But the individuals listed on the applications informed detectives that they did not request the form, they did not complete the form, and verified that the signature on the form was not theirs. At this point, it is believed that the fraudulent voter registrations are connected to a large-scale canvassing operations for voter registrations that date back to June.
Of course, that is exactly what's happening. What do you think is the reason that California, after COVID, said, oh, no matter what, everyone's just going to get a mail-in ballot. We're just going to pass a law. You're going to get it even if you don't request one. Because you're not requesting it, someone else is getting it, and they're going to fill those things in. They're going to figure out how many they need. They're going to drop these things off, and they're going to go, well, we've already declared California, and so we can't go backwards. And if you question anything, we're going to tell you that you're anti-American. You know, what's anti-American is not prosecuting these people to the full extent of the law. Somebody in the chat said, give them the death sentence. Yeah, it's probably going to take something very extreme to signal to the public that we will not tolerate this. Okay, we are not going to tolerate voter fraud. These little slaps on the wrist are not going to work. It's incredible when people who recognize that our election was rigged show up to support Donald Trump and then took like a stroll throughout the Capitol building. They lock these people up for months. This is when the Dems are in power. This is what the Dems do. They're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to torture you so that you are scared to be a patriot. We want the whole world to watch us as we punish you severely for virtually nothing so that you know that we have it in us. Why don't Republicans have it in them? Why don't Republicans, when they get power, do these exact same things? Okay? There should be a incredibly severe punishment for people that are caught engaging in election fraud. That should be the case, no matter what. And who cares? Who cares what the media says? Who cares what the media calls us? Like, we've been called everything already. But like I said, everybody's a coward. I'm so sick of seeing that. And that's not it, by the way. So down in Virginia, they recognized that there were 1,600 voters who honestly wrote were not citizens on their ballots. All right. So what did Virginia do? They did the right thing. They purged them. They purged the non-citizens from the state voter rolls. And guess what? The people who never cheat, like Democrats, decided like, no, this is not right. We want these people reinstated. So it ends up going to federal court. A federal judge today ordered for Virginia to reinstate the non-citizens to the voter rolls. They said, no, reinstate them to the voter rolls. 1,600 residents that admit that they are not citizens are now going to be able to vote in Virginia. Here is what Governor Glenn Youngkin wrote on his Twitter about it. He wrote, let's be clear what just happened. Only 11 days before a presidential election, a federal judge ordered Virginia to reinstate over 1,500 individuals who self-identified themselves as non-citizens back onto the voter rolls. So remember this the next time that someone comes to you and they say, oh, you believe voter fraud, like a voter fraud happened, it's a conspiracy, or when you see somebody who pretends to be a conservative, doesn't have the nerve to recognize that this is already happening in our country and it doesn't need to be widespread. It just, again, needs to be in these crucial states. Remember this. Remember these stories. Just so you know, they are planning on appealing that decision. Glenn Youngkin said that they're going to appeal that to the Supreme Court, and hopefully they will win in an emergency appeal. But this shouldn't be happening. I mean, this just shouldn't even be a thing. I mean, this federal judge, how are you a federal judge allowing for our elections to be rigged in this manner by allowing people who are not citizens at the same time that they are just getting everybody over the border? And now they're sending out all of these mail-in ballots. It is just an absolute nonsense and truly an embarrassment. That's why when people ask me, oh, what do you think is going to happen this election cycle? I ask, have we fixed the problem with the last election cycle? What, you want me to make a prediction here as if we have free and fair elections in the United States of America, as if the media isn't colluding to get one candidate election, as if we don't have mail-in ballots in certain states that are just being handed out to everyone, no system of checks and balances, and people that are too fearful to fight for real justice? I don't know. I think I'm going to remove myself from the game of political prognostications. Anyways, you guys, the October tax deadline has passed. If you owe back taxes and if your tax returns are still unfiled or you missed the deadline to file for an extension, well, now that October 15th is behind us, the IRS may be ramping up enforcement and you could face wage garnishments, frozen bank accounts, or even property seizures if you do not take action. But there is still hope. Tax Network USA has helped taxpayers save over $1 billion in tax debt and has filed over 10,000 tax returns. They specialize in helping people just like you reduce their tax burdens, and they can help you too. So do not wait any longer. Visit tnusa.com/Candace, or you can call 1-800-958-1000 for a free consultation. Their experts will walk you through a few simple questions to see how much you can save. So act now before the IRS takes more aggressive steps. Take control today by visiting tnusa.com/Candace. Or again, you can call 1-800-958-1000. Okay, I don't know if you've seen this trending on Twitter. Somebody help me, please. Somebody help me. So Elon Musk, the Wall Street Journal has done an investigation and published a piece and determined that Musk has been speaking to Vladimir Putin. Yes, the Wall Street Journal reported that the SpaceX founder and the obvious Donald Trump ally, Elon Musk, and the Russian president have been in regular contact since late 2022. The horror. And people are going, he is a Russian asset. Oh, he should have to. What's going on? The government is giving him money. Elon Musk is clearly a Russian asset. How dare this man speak to President Putin? But no one can answer a basic question for me. Why is Elon Musk not allowed to speak to Vladimir Putin? Let me tell you something. If Vladimir Putin calls me right now, I am picking up the phone. I will speak to Vladimir Putin live on air. Like, what are we at war with Russia? Oh, no, we're not at war with Russia. No, we haven't done anything to Russia. Russia's mad for no reason. No, we are. That's kind of what you're implying. You know we've been fighting a war by proxy, right? You know what we've been doing in Ukraine is no good. We've been up to no good. We've been on his border doing no good. And you're just using the media to make people think Putin bad, as we continue to do bad all around Vladimir Putin. And I've said this since day one. You call me a Russian asset. I don't care. I've never been to Russia. You guys make stuff up about me all the time. I'm sorry that I call balls and obvious strikes. No, American people have no concept of history, don't know that we pledged that NATO would not move 1 inch eastward And then we moved plenty of inches eastward. And now we are essentially putting troops on his border. And he's supposed to just, take that as if we would be totally chill if Vladimir Putin was just putting troops in Mexico, putting troops in Canada. Oh, yeah, no, we'd be chill. We'd be cool. If him and BRICS decided to put together a little army, yes, we would have like Brazil, Russia, India, China, and they just put together a little army, and then they put like soldiers in Canada, and they put soldiers in Mexico, and they were like, hey, what's the big deal? Canada decided to join BRICS. Mexico wants to join BRICS. Why are you guys spazzing out, America? It's like, it's just peak gaslighting. And so, yes, first and foremost, it makes sense if you are a businessman and you have SpaceX, and that's kind of everywhere, that you would want to make sure that you have meaningful contacts with people in government. I am just so tired of the Cold War rhetoric. I'm sorry, Cold War generation. You guys be done, We're so sick of it. I get it. It was traumatizing. They had we had fire alarms. You guys had nuclear fire alarms. You had to get under your desk as if that was going to save you from a nuclear bomb. Like, what? So stupid. Anyways, I know, I'm sorry. You guys were under the desk and they told you Russia bad. And it never left you. It never left you. But as far as we've been alive and our generation has grown up, what are we supposed to be concerned about with Russia? Okay? Any reasonable person is going to be upset if a hostile, and we have become increasingly hostile, okay? For whatever reason, we should be locking arms with Putin. That should be a natural ally and a guard against China and China's power and the Spratly Islands. Like, these people are literally building islands out of nowhere in the middle of the sea. That's the concern, okay? China has a very concerning thing going on over there at the Spratly Islands. And you're like, well, let's just pick on Russia. For what reason? I'm so sick of it. I'm so sick of it. I don't care. I literally don't care. Okay. So Elon Musk is allowed to talk to Vladimir Putin. Okay. If every single music star, Bono, U2, everyone singing, Brad Paisley is allowed to go guitars and sing along with the homosexual Zelensky. That's my take on that. And I'm sorry, anybody's upset about that. I don't really care. I literally don't care. Just don't care. Anyways, you guys, I wanted to tell you some stuff that you could watch today. First and foremost, you guys know Donald Trump is going to be on Joe Rogan. I don't know when that's dropping or if it's already dropped since I've been on air, but that's something to look forward to. But even bigger, I did Nick Cannon's show. I actually shot it a few months ago, and they just dropped that now. And I'm going to give you two of the teasers of our conversation. Take a listen.
It's not about money.
You think it's more than money? Because everything you're saying is
100%. I think there is an agenda.
It's for the dollar. It's not to really control money.
You're trying to tell me when you and I don't know how old you are, but we got to be around the same age, graduated high school, there were this many trans kids?
Yes. It's just now that there's an opportunity for them to be expressive and they're in a safe space now, because now they were probably struggling a little bit more, but the community has always been
that's
a
an
community.
agenda. Hollywood is
about money.
How is it plausible that everything Hollywood promotes is antithetical to the Bible? I mean, there's got to be like just one thing that they were like, yeah, that part's true. No, it's like they're anti-marriage, they're anti-life, they're pro-transgendered. Literally, it's like someone read the Bible and then said it upside down, and they go, that's Hollywood.
But this is my thing.
If you are, say something biblical, or you are faithful in Hollywood, you'd be the first person to get canceled.
See, I disagree. Or somebody taught me this. You can find the devil in anything, but you can see God in everything.
Show me God in Hollywood, please.
Babylonian. There's just literally nothing about Hollywood that is admirable. Their idea is to make you worship the stars, quite literally worship the stars, to remove yourself from the one true God and to believe in whatever it is that they are selling, which is the opposite of virtue. So that's my opinion. Here's another clip of us discussing LBJ.
Welfarism did this to Black America. It is a fact that in the 1950s, under Jim Crow, that Black Americans were outpacing white Americans in terms of growth. Well, what happened was, despite there being Jim Crow, or because of Jim Crow, Black Americans couldn't rely on government. There is this simple thing that when your back is against the wall, you will fight, And so then LBJ, who was the most racist president, I mean, this man was dropping the hard R-N word for breakfast every day. He hated Black Americans, and yet we learned in public school that he was our savior because he inked the Civil Rights Bill.
But he had to. That wasn't by choice.
Literally, he had a figurative gun to his head.
Yeah.
And there's more stuff that he did in terms of trying, the draft, wanting Black Americans to die first in Vietnam. He was so committed to racism. And he said, I'll have these N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And in one fell swoop, signed welfareism in. And that's what broke down our families. Black America will literally say the absolute most about how bad government is while insisting that we have more government.
Very important discussion, I think, especially now that we are heading to the polls for Black Americans to hear, and I'm really grateful to Nick Cannon for hosting me, because obviously he has a tremendous audience, and even though we didn't agree on everything, he definitely listened, and he believes in the power of conversation. And we agreed on a lot, by the way. There's tons of stuff that we did agree on, so it was not a hostile conversation whatsoever. He was very kind, and so if you have time and you want to watch that, that will be on Amazon Prime, and you can catch that conversation, share bits of that conversation online, and hopefully enough people see it to recognize that something is dangerously wrong when LBJ was successful in his campaign to have Black people, N-words, voting Democrat for the next 200 years. All right, guys, before we read your comments, the economy has been a major burden on the average American. Wages are flat, expenses are up, and it is very hard to manage to pay all the bills without using credit cards. If you're a homeowner and you're frustrated with that cycle, you can make a 10-minute, no-obligation call to my friends at American Financing. Interest rates are coming down and are now in the low 5s. So if you're constantly carrying a credit card balance each and every month with a rate in the 20s, American Financing can show you how to put your hard-earned equity to work and get you out of debt. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are saving their customers an average of $800 a month. And if you get started today, you may not even have to make next month's mortgage payment. So call today at 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210. Or you can visit AmericanFinancing.net/Owens. Again, that's AmericanFinancing.net/Owens. All right, guys, reminding you to sign up and support the show at Locals. We are still demonetized on YouTube. And so we do rely on you guys and whatever it is that you want to donate monthly to support our freedom. We deeply appreciate it. So definitely head to locals.com if you can and support the show in any capacity. Also, you can head to clubcandace.com and support the show by buying some merchandise. You can buy yourself a mug. You can buy yourself a Standis cup. You can buy yourself a t-shirt. There's plenty on there. Head to clubcandace.com. And now we are going to pivot over not to Bumble, but to Rumble. I got it right today to read some of your comments. We'll see you guys there. Okay, my Rumble peeps.